Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom with Bob Olson, who will now introduce today's show and speaker.
Welcome to Cry Oneness, a program with Joe Avalo, who encourage people to share their experiences with God, their miracles, their music, their poetry. Share your life. And now here he is, Joe Avalos. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Bob. So happy to be back this week. And I have a friend that's going to call in. He's on the line waiting for us to finish. And it's so
Beautiful.
nice to hear from Fred. You know, I shared last week I got a letter from him. So I'd like to start off by thanking all the people that have been going to the website. You know, there's over 1,500 people right now that have signed up to be notified when the book comes out. So we're going to have about 2,000 people by the time Sebastian finishes editing the book. We should have a couple of thousand people we can send emails to. No guarantee that they're going to buy, but that's quite a database. I'm getting 35 hits per day on the website recently. So people are really starting to go there a lot. And I'm so excited at the possibility of reaching more people. But it's all about Fred tonight. He's got a lot of good stuff to tell us from Albuquerque. So I'm going to start off with a letter he wrote to me. I visited Albuquerque to see the Richard Rohr Conference back in April or May, and I met Fred, and we had coffee together, and we talked all day. It was like an old friend that I hadn't met yet, and he was having some difficulties, and I was having some difficulties. If he wants to elaborate, he can later. But we shared what our problems were. They got cut in half. And I also shared a little bit about my interest in the Divine Mercy. And 3 months later, I got this beautiful letter from Fred. So I'm going to read it, and then I'll let Fred start talking. Fred sent me, Dear Joe, the Divine Mercy is the gift that keeps on giving. Yesterday, I discovered a small group that meets on Tuesdays where my AA group meets. Because yesterday was a holy day, they met a little later than usual. I walked in, and there they were with Sister Faustina's diary and the other Divine Mercy material. Now I have 2 Tuesday meetings back-to-back. I pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet every morning when I first awake. My church has an adoration chapel that I visit often, usually before Mass, where I also pray the chaplet. My prayer life has improved 1,000% since we met. My AA meetings, I have discovered, are not a substitution for prayer and meditation. I was so lazy in this area. Divine Mercy Sunday was preceded by Divine Mercy Novena, and my prayer life has changed much for the better. My wife's cancer issues have been an ever-changing event. If her condition is improving or not is one thing. Both our attitudes about her illness has changed considerably. Our prayer is to move forward a day at a time and ask for God's power to improve our outlook, and we are accepting that her illness is in God's hands, not ours. The outcome regarding cancer is in His able hands. The willingness to accept the outcome is ours. Life on this planet is only a way station on the way to a better life. This is not just a pleasant sentiment, it's real, and our faith has grown considerably. I still have A Miracle in Time. I enjoy reading it, and I'm sure you have had a real editor review your work. It's beautiful, and I would not change a thing. I hope you will let me keep it. You helped change my life in a very profound way. I will not make any copies unless you give me permission, but I would like to read your poetry to my new friends. Hope things are going well for you. Let's stay in touch. Fred, and I'm not going to use last names tonight because of our program. It's great to hear from, I wrote this back to Fred. It's great to hear from you. My book is being edited by the publisher now. He is a doctor of philosophy and ancient English literature. He is a Christian who owns and operates En Route Publishing, and his name is Sebastian Mahfood. He is Vice President of Government Affairs for the Cromwell Holy Apostles Monastery. The book should be out soon. I'm happy you enjoyed your copy. I loved meeting you and had a profound effect on me approving the publishing of the book. Here's a link to my website. And feel free to share and copy what you have for friends. I trust you with it, like I trust you for everything. And, I asked Fred to be on the radio show by email, and he's here tonight. And I'm so happy to introduce Fred. And he's so active down there. He helps people. He runs houses for people who are having problems. And Fred, welcome to our show. I'm so happy to hear from you again after being down there in Albuquerque with you. It was such a joy meeting you.
Thank you. I enjoyed so much being able to do this tonight and to share something that's really so important and so has so profoundly affected my life in such a great way. Thank you.
You know, we never know the effect we're going to have on somebody's life. I helped somebody several months ago, and you know, all I did was take the person out to lunch, and we didn't talk like you did, and I didn't think I even had any impact on his life at all. And 3 months later, he came back to me and said, "You don't know how much you did for me that day." And I said, I just went out to lunch with you. I said, "I just went out to lunch with you." And he said, "No, you went out to lunch with me just at the time where I would have done something foolish if you didn't take me."
Joe, let me interrupt here a minute. I'm getting a slight echo on your phone for some reason.
Maybe because we're three-way?
No, I think it's not on. It's not on Fred's. It's just on yours. Is there something that you're connected different, or something with the computer, or what?
Same way as last week. Let me try to turn the Bluetooth on, maybe.
Okay.
Is that any different?
No.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn it over to you two, and I'm going to start listening to the show, and I'll call back in when you finish interviewing Fred. See if it helps.
No. You got to interview him because you know. It's important that you do it. But
well, this echo's pretty bad. I can hear it now, so I'm going to hang up and call back. You guys talk for a couple of minutes, okay? You can think of some questions. All right.
So, Fred, you told me about these sober houses, and how'd you come up with that idea?
Oh, it wasn't an idea that I came up with. It was a man in Silver Spring, Maryland, 42 years ago, and he was living in a halfway house in Maryland, and that house lost its state funding, and so he and his companions, his housemates, decided that they would come up with the money and that they would pay the rent on it themselves and become self-supporting. And that laid the groundwork for these houses. And now there's over 2,000 of these houses now in 44 states.
Oh, my goodness.
They have, they're having a big, each year they have a great convention, and every other year it's in Washington, D.C. That's next to Silver Spring, Maryland. And then in the other years they have it in other areas. And I went to one of their conferences in Portland, Oregon, and I went to one in Washington, D.C. But the way I found out about Oxford House is that I was working with some recovering alcoholics and addicts that were in a treatment center on a long-term basis, and had about 3 years experience there, and very hardly anyone that came out of there could stay sober a whole year. And most of them failed within a month or 3 months. And two of the fellows entered an Oxford House because they didn't have any place to stay that they felt safe in. And so they interviewed at an Oxford House, and they were accepted by the people that were the roommates in a particular house where they interviewed, and they were accepted, and they've stayed sober ever since. And this has been like 3 or 4 years for these people. And the difference is that they had a good place to go to with some peers that provided the support for them to stay clean and sober and go to AA meetings or NA meetings, CA meetings, and they had to get a job and then stay sober. And that's they sign a contract when they go in. They allow themselves to be drug tested or tested for alcohol use, and if turns out positive, then they're asked to leave, and they have 30 days to clean up their act, and then they can reapply. But it's a wholly democratic thing. It's a program that really works, and I'm just amazed by it. And I owned one house, and because I've been sober for over 40 years myself, and I really believe that this is probably one of the best ways that I've seen that people can stay clean and sober and really change their lives.
Now you have 3 houses now.
I have 2.
Oh, 2.
Yeah,
okay.
I have 2 houses. I have just one, and then about 9 months after that, I bought another house. And that one has women in it now, and the other house has men.
Now, how many people can you put in a house?
Both of these houses, one of them is a 5-bedroom house, the other is a 4-bedroom house, and their charter is for 7 people. And most of them have to double up in a room. They have to have a roommate. And if they've been sober a while and lived in the house for a while, they may get a room by themselves. But all the new people have to share a room with someone.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good policy. That way.
Good program.
So it's a wonderful deal.
When did you buy your first one?
I bought my first one in September in 2014.
Wow. That's beautiful.
So,
Joe, are you back? Hello, Joe. I thought Joe was back.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't hear him either.
So were you? Have you always been? Have you always been going to church?
No. I was baptized Catholic and raised Catholic, and went to Catholic schools and public schools as well. And then I had my problems with alcohol, and when I was 35, I'm 77 now, almost 78, and so when I was 35 years old, I came to AA, and I've been clean and sober ever since, and gradually worked my way back.
I'm back on, Bob.
Okay, good. I hear you.
Yeah, sounds good now. What did you do?
I just recalled. I can still hear the echo on my end, though.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess we'll have to deal with it. It's not that bad. So, and Joe and I don't think we have echoes on our phones.
And mine's clear. Both of your voices are clear to me over here. Of course, I'm not tuned in to the radio station. I'm just on the phone.
Well, that's where we're both on the phone.
Yeah, it's not as loud as it was before, Bob.
Well, that's good. Okay, we've just been talking about the sober houses, and it's interesting how you were down there in Albuquerque, and going to that conference, and then were you just watching this restaurant and you sat down with Fred?
Yeah. Yep.
What'd you say? Can I sit down with you or something like that?
I don't recall exactly. We just started talking after a meeting, and somehow we got into talking about my father and Fred's son. He was having a little difficulty at the time, and I was still having difficulty forgiving my father. And he talked about something that happened with him and his son. I talked about something that happened with me and my father, and it's so similar, a father talking about his son and the son talking about his father, and somehow both our wounds kind of healed each other, and I think that's the way my program works, and also the wounded healer concept in theology. You have to have the same wound to heal somebody with the wound. That type of thing happened. It was amazing in my mind, I know I left there loving my father again, and I don't know how Fred felt, but maybe he can tell you. What do you have to say, Fred?
It was interesting. I went to this meeting, and I was pretty depressed about my wife's cancer issues, and she seemed to be getting worse instead of better since her last chemo. And she, I just felt so bad for her. I just didn't know what to do. I was so full of fear and anxiety about her situation. I felt so helpless about doing anything with it. And then in the meeting, I think I shared a little bit about that, and then Joe spoke, and he said that he was in Albuquerque to go to this conference with this Richard Rohr and so forth, and then he announced that he had this gift of locutions, which I didn't have any idea what that was at all, and so he gave us an example, and I think that was the number one poem that you have in your book, and it was about unity, and it was really beautiful, and I was so taken by it. I wanted to talk to Joe some more about this, and talk to him about this conference that he was going to. And at that time, it was in late March or early April, and I had already made plans that I would participate in Divine Mercy Sunday, and I had some issues that were really bothering me a lot with some family members, and I knew that I had to unload this burden, and so Divine Mercy Sunday was my target date for doing this. And I really didn't know that much about Divine Mercy, and then
welcome. This service is provided by
and Joe and I talked about it. Did you get that? Did you hear the feedback?
No, that's not. I think Joe had to hang up. He must have got a call.
Okay, so we're all hooked up still, right?
Okay, Bob. No, hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
You back, Joe?
Yeah, I am. I think I know the problem. So
we don't usually have many problems. Okay.
Okay.
He was telling me about Mercy Sunday, and Fred said he didn't know much about Divine Mercy. So go ahead, Fred.
Okay, and so Joe and I talked about it, and then in some detail.
I know what I was going to ask you. You didn't even go to that conference, huh?
No, I didn't. I didn't even know it was going on.
Okay.
I didn't even.
So, boy, that was that was really a good meeting, huh? Can you imagine that?
Oh, well, I tell you what, it was Joe and I really connected in a very powerful way, and we went to breakfast, and we talked, and we prayed together, and I told him about my issues with my son, who has mental illness and drinking problem, and then Joe shared with me that he would really like to work on his resentments he had with his father, and so we role played, and that was really powerful. It was quite an experience.
How you getting along with your son now?
I haven't heard from him. The last time I talked to him was first part of February 2015.
So you're still working on that, huh?
Yeah, I sent him some letters and cards for his birthday, and then
good.
So I'm left the door open. If he wants to come this way, then it's fine. He lives in Oakland, California.
The only job you have is you just have to forgive him and love him.
Yeah.
And then the rest is up to him.
Right. And
the sad part about this whole thing is my sponsor has a son too with the same problem. It's amazing, right? Two people, two different states. I know them both, and both the same situation.
Father and son,
my sponsor's done everything he can to clean up his end of it, and his son is non-responsive. It's a terrible disease, on both ends.
Do they have alcohol too?
Yeah, his is strictly alcohol now. He had a bad experience when he was in his early 20s with, it was marijuana and alcohol, living in California. And he had a psychotic break and ended up in a mental ward. And then he got out, and his mother's mother helped him with his recovery, got him into therapy, and he was completely clean and sober for 12 or 15 years. And then he got it in his head that he could drink beer and it wasn't going to harm him. So he just started drinking, and he works. He's a hard worker, and he's a plumber, and he works to 4:30 or 5 every day. Goes to work at 7 in the morning, and but he buys a 12-pack of beer on the way home, and he manages to drink the most of it by himself. And he has a couple of roommates, and they help him. They buy their own drinks, and but he just doesn't realize that it's in the genes. My father had the problem. I have the problem. And now he has the problem, but his is compounded. He's using that for medication and for his problem, and he's either manic depressive or schizophrenic. One of those. I'm not sure.
Did you ever make up with your father?
But
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me, Bob?
No, I was talking to Fred.
Oh yeah, I'm okay with my father. My father passed away in '93, and so he drank to the end of his life, and unfortunately, he suicided on July 27 when he was 77, and that's what's made this a tough year for me.
Yeah.
Getting by July 27, I'm 77 now, and that date just kind of stuck in my mind, and it was kind of a bugaboo. So once that date, and once it came to July 26, but I prayed every day for my dad in purgatory, and for my mom at Divine Mercy prayers, chaplets. And
you made peace. You made peace with your father then, no?
Oh yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we were okay towards the end of his life.
So why don't we go back now? Now that Joel's back, let's go back to when you guys were talking about the
Divine Mercy. Let's go back to
Divine
Fred.
Mercy. And,
Fred, how has the Divine Mercy affected you within the past couple of months? Can you share a little bit about that, the things that have happened since you became in tune with the Divine Mercy program? And how has it helped you with the other program?
Yeah, and that's really become the major part of my life. I used to think if I went to early morning AA meeting, that would take care of our morning prayers. And that's about where I was in my prayer life, and until I ran into Joe and got started on this on the Divine Mercy. So I made an appointment with my pastor, and we sat face to face, and the confession was a really thorough one, and we talked about these resentments and so forth, and talked about getting cured from this, and with the Divine Mercy, and this was in preparation for the Divine Mercy novena, which I started that on Good Friday and finished up on the Saturday before Divine Mercy Sunday. And by praying every day and going to communion often during the week, praying at the Adoration Chapel. We have a really nice Adoration Chapel where the Blessed Sacrament is exposed in the tabernacle as long as someone is actually in the chapel, and then if no one is in there, then the last person closes the tabernacle until the next person comes in. But it's pretty well covered during all the daylight hours until into the evening. People are assigned, and then you can just walk in if you're not on the list to participate in adoration. But praying that chaplet every morning when I get up first thing is key to my program for myself. And I was hoping that there would be some other people in my parish that were involved with a special devotion to Divine Mercy. And the only time I could really go would be during the day, not in the evenings, because we go to bed very early down here, 6:30. Usually we're in bed, and my wife gets up about 3 3:30 in the morning. I get up about 4:30. So we're daytime people, and so on Tuesdays we'll have a AA meeting I like particularly. That's at noon at Risen Savior Catholic Church, and it's in a room in the back of the church. It's like a little meeting room or classroom, and I went there early to set up for the AA meeting, and there were these people that were in the room, and when I walked in, there were 4 of them, and they had their diary by Sister Faustina, and they had some other Divine Mercy literature, and I told them I was familiar with it, and I would like to get involved, and so yesterday I went to my first full meeting there, and it's a nice prayer group, and they have study books. It's what they use is Cynical Formation Manual and Prayer Book, and they use that book. It's called Eucharistic Apostles of the Divine Mercy. I guess they're the people that put this study book together. And I'm really excited about it. So it's a weekly meeting, and I'm going to be, they're going to bring me the literature that I can't find at our Catholic bookstore here, and they're going to bring some, and I'm going to buy that from them. But it's to me, it's just really exciting.
There's no coincidence there. You walk into a room not expecting anything, and God has everything right there that you need, right? That's what I found out in my life is when I stop looking for something, God likes to surprise me with stuff, you know. When I stop self-seeking, boy, it's amazing what happens, isn't it, Fred? Self-seeking avails us nothing, right? But if we believe in Him, He'll give us anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really amazing.
So what else happened after you went to your first Divine Mercy Sunday? That's pretty amazing what happened there.
Yeah.
Did you have any special feeling at the first Eucharist on Divine Mercy Sunday or anything like that?
Oh, I just, I can't really remember particularly. It's just everything about praying is a whole lot different, and it changes. The more that I do it, then the deeper I get into contemplation or meditation. I think it's more contemplation than it is meditation when I'm praying the chaplet on the rosary. And it's just it's a wonderful experience. I want to get anybody that are my friends, I would like, that are Catholic, I would really like to get them on board with this. And but it's made a big difference in my life. And
it's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, just then my attitude and my feelings about my wife's cancer situation is one that I can't say I'm really handling it. I mean, God's handling it for me, but I have a different and more positive attitude about living our lives one day at a time and making the most out of it without worrying about the future that we don't know what it holds for us. And so this prayer helps a lot.
Yeah, that's a signal of grace. That's grace just giving you the ability to deal with everything, you know. I pray the rosary in the morning and the Divine Mercy at 3, and I'll tell you, I did the Divine Mercy before I got into AA, and I think He used the Divine Mercy to get me into AA. And now he's given you a byproduct of AA, the Divine Mercy, to give you another pathway to get to him. It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. And they play hand in hand so well. It's just absolutely amazing. And these two programs dovetail so perfectly for me. And I'm so glad that I met you and had a chance to be exposed to this in a very positive way. And I could tell that you were very, different kind of guy. You were on a real strong, powerful path that seemed to really be working so well for you. And so I thought, well, this is what I want for me. And that was the reason that I was so attentive or kind of insistent to get as much time as I could with you personally, even though I wasn't enrolled in the conference. I did get to get in there and participate in one of the wrap-up meetings. I got a flavor for what it was about, and I liked what I saw there. But,
have I ever told you about the final communion? Have I told you about how they did the final communion I got to go to because of you helped me?
No.
Let me draw you a picture of it. I would have missed this if the flight was on time, if it wasn't changed. I went back there, and it was the most beautiful communion service I ever saw in my life. And they had a table the length of a regular gym because there's 1,800 people there. And they put 900 of us on one side of the table and 900 on the other side of the table. And they had hosts and chalices. There must have been 40 of them. And they had people from either side. Richard Rohr stayed at the end of one, and another minister stayed at the end of the other. It was a multi-denominational service. And people actually walked up to the chalice and to the host. And line by line, each person came in eye contact with another person. And the person on one side of the table gave communion to the person on the other side of the table, and the other side of the table reciprocated with the host. And they used grape juice so that everybody could receive. And Richard Rohr said, you don't need an inebriating substance to get inebriated by the Spirit, so we just use grape juice here. And it was amazing because I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to participate in the wine, and it wasn't wine. It was grapes, but not wine. Yeah.
Right.
So that's what you got me back to by helping me that day.
Now, I'm really glad that you had a chance to participate in. I remember now you were talking about that communion service, and that really made an impression on you. And
right. The only larger service I've ever been to, and I hope you can get to come up here someday to go there with me, is the Divine Mercy Shrine in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, where they have 17,000 people receiving communion and outdoor services on Divine Mercy Sunday. People from all over the world come. That's the only bigger communion I've ever been to. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to.
Bob's been there, right, Bob?
Oh, yes.
I'm getting a lot of echoes, so why don't you tell Fred a little more about that Divine Mercy National Shrine?
Well, it's in a beautiful spot. I think it's called Eden Hill. And it's just beautifully situated. And they have an outdoor sanctuary there. And the problem they've had through the years, it's kind of early in the season, like, is it in May, Joe, or beginning of June?
Yeah. Sometimes they have mud, sometimes they have snow, yeah.
Because they're in the mountains there. And so I've been there a couple times where I know one year I got sick and I had to leave. I had to miss Sunday. And but it's just a wonderful place. And they have a beautiful bookstore there, and they have so many wonderful people that are working there. But it's definitely a place that if you have a chance at all, it's a place where you should really try to make that. Especially when it meant so much to you this year, that the Divine Mercy Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a beautiful place to stay at the foot of the mountain across in the town. You go up a hill from the center of town in Stockbridge, Mass. And they have a place called the Red Lion Inn, which is a historic inn in the Berkshires, and it's amazing. You stay there, old-fashioned inn, and go up to the Divine Mercy service in the morning. You have to make reservations far in advance, but even all during the season, I take a ride up there sometimes. I was up there about a year ago, and I was sharing some poems with people, like I shared with you, and I identified them as locutions. And I was sharing it with a lady, and I had asked the Lord if I could share. I said, I don't know what to do with all this stuff. I think I should be speaking in front of groups. So I just do it one at a time. But I shared with this one lady, and she said, would you come with me and share with my friends? So I went with her, not knowing how many people were with her. She was with 2 busloads of people from Canada, and she had me stand up in front of them and give a presentation on my poetry and locution. And I actually sang the song. I actually sang the poem, Fred, that made you feel something in front of 38 people. 80 people who were on 2 buses, and people started weeping when I sang it. And I don't know if it's because I sung bad or they liked the words, but people were actually tearing in the eyes when I sang it.
Can you find the one that you sang for Fred?
Yeah, I'll sing it for him if he wants me to.
Okay.
Through the ancient deserts trounced, the silent wings of light and time, decades screaming for the light, caressing dreams of wandering souls, voices whispering in the sands of weathered beaches, on the shorelines of mankind, passionate trials of blighted past, leading to the endless light. Frighten not the faithful servants, choosing good instead of evil. The fight is never all for naught. Cry oneness to the Lord. Unity will overcome.
Oh, yeah. I really love that. I read that.
So that's the one I read to you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I read it to the group yesterday where they really liked it.
Yeah, that's good. I'm so happy. That's the first one I got, and I got that one in an AA meeting, so it's great for you sharing that one. I actually received that in an AA meeting, and I had to write so fast in my book. Some guy was at the meeting sharing that he thought he was going to die in heart surgery the next day, and he brought all his poems with him, and I said, Lord, do you think I can write poetry? And that poem came out. And the other story about that poem is, I was just sharing this with people today at my meeting, too. It's sitting outside, though, and after that happened, I was very upset, and I brought it to a priest. It scared me. That poem scared me, because I didn't know anything about poetry when it came out, or locution. Mm-hmm. So I took it to Father John Jude in Vero Beach after about 2 weeks of people telling me it was just a poem, because I knew it wasn't just a poem, for some reason. And Father John Jude was there. And he said, Joe, he said, it's not a poem, it's a locution. And he said, and it's on salvation, that's what it's about. And he said, and Ralph Martin is here today, and he's given a talk in his book, The Fulfillment of All Your Desires, and that's about salvation too. He said, it costs $25. He said, but you have that locution, you go in there and sit in on a Ralph's Weekend Conference on me for nothing. And then I went down to talk to a guy in the program, and I met with him on his place on the ocean. And he said to me, Joe, and he used to talk to dolphins. He was very spiritual too. And he said to me, your poems are like musical lines in a song. You need to put music to your poetry. And I said, you're crazy. His name was Tom. I said, I don't know anything about music or poetry, and you're telling me I should have music. I'll never be able to do that. So 2 years later, I'm at my mother's nursing home in Stanford, because I moved back to Connecticut because my mother was dying, and she was still okay at this point in time. And I went to a mass at the Smith House Nursing Home where she was at, and there was a guitar player there from a charismatic prayer group, and her name was Gail. And I had never met her before, but something moved me to go ask her if she could put music to my poetry after the Mass. And she looked at me with spiritual eyes, because she was very spiritual and still is. And she said, Joe, I could write music for your poetry, but I won't. And I said, what do you mean you won't? Why won't you? She said, because you already have the music to your poem. And then the Spirit touched me, and I said, you mean that tune I was humming on Vero Beach, Florida every time I jogged, and I didn't know what music it was? And she said, yes, that's the music for your poem. So she said, if you hum it for me, I'll write music. So I hummed her the tune I did on the beach, and she wrote sheet music for it. And 2 months later, we're using it for praise and worship in the prayer group at St. John's where I started going.
Wow.
How crazy is that?
Oh, man. Well, you have a good voice, too, and you carry a tune very well. So
it's easy to sing to somebody you love, Fred. I don't sing anything else well. I just sing to God well. That's all I sing. You know, it's my voice, when I try popular songs, it's just nothing. But somehow, when I'm singing to the Lord, my voice is different. And when I first went in that prayer group, Gail used to tell me, you can't hold, you're singing, you're tone deaf, Joe, you're off key. And then 4 months later, she said, Joe, you're on key. I said, what happened? I don't think I'm singing any different. She says, yes, you are. So that was another miracle.
Yeah.
It's just a miracle after miracle.
I don't know much about music, but I'm not tone deaf, and I can really tell if somebody's on key and off key, and it's amazing. You're spot on. So,
was it different when I sang it? Did it move you differently when I sang it, or was it better when I read it?
Oh, it's better when you sing it.
The more of yourself you use to praise God, the more He enjoys it. Correct, Bob?
Joe, is that the girl that has the band in the prayer group?
That's Gail, who plays the guitar in the Darien prayer group at St. John's. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you still
going over there? Are you still going over there?
I live in Danbury. I'm too far away to go there every Tuesday, but I'm planning on stopping by soon because I want to let them know about the book and everything. They're very good friends, you know, Marilyn and Gail and John, and you know.
Yeah.
I love them all. It's just guess where I was Friday night? I was at a praise and worship service. I was at a praise and worship service with Father Larry Carew.
Oh, good. Was that up
and he prayed over me in proxy for my sister for her multiple sclerosis diagnosis.
Was that in Danbury?
Yes, it's in the Cross Church. It's a non-denominational church, but all of his high school students have a praise and worship group there. And some of them are still Catholic and some aren't, so they meet there and they have something called the Coffee House. And the purpose is to sing praise and worship. So it's basically a charismatic group, non-denominational, that meets every Friday, Sunday, and Monday. And Father Carew is there 2 out of the 3 days to support his high school students. Because he used to be the principal at St. Joseph's High, and that's where all these guys are from. And they have the singing there is unbelievable. They have a keyboard. They have a screen where you can sing along with the words, and it's amazing. I was so lifted up this past Friday night, and I went back again Monday, and I think I'm going to do it every week, because just being with Father Carew is a blessing, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He was the director of the Charismatic Movement in Connecticut, wasn't he, at one time? For Bishop?
He's on how should I say it? He's a liaison to the bishop for the Charismatic Movement.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Fred, would you mind telling us, you know, what you think of the book? Because you have a copy of the book, right? You have how many pages of it? I forget how many I gave you.
Yeah, I've got
A Miracle in Time.
I got the whole. Can you still hear me? I laid the phones down.
Yeah, I can hear you. Do you have the part where my story's in it, or just the poetry?
Oh no, in the beginning it has your story in there in section 1, what my life was like, what happened, what it's like now.
Oh, yeah.
Good old, and then
so try to give us a little book review, because people are listening and they've been going to the website, and that has the poems and it doesn't have my story on it, but it has the poems, and half the poems and half the miracles I've had. So, what hit you the most? What in the book did you enjoy the most, and why?
This section 2 about the Divine Mercy experiences.
Oh, yeah.
And I really liked it. They're just little short stories, a page or two each. And you have gosh.
Was the one about St. Therese in San Diego there at the wildfires? I don't remember if you had that.
Let's see. The 12th story is about the death of my saint.
My mother, yeah.
And that was about your mom, and
she did the rosary every day, 4 or 5 times. She was very devout to Mary.
Oh, she sounded like a really wonderful lady. Really does.
What do you think of her dying at the exact time I asked for her forgiveness for doing something that my sponsor wanted me to ask her?
Yeah, it was how she went into something. What?
Agonal breathing. Yeah.
Chain stroke.
Yeah.
Stroke breathing. Oxygen.
That's a sign that the heart is
dropped to 40%. It was 100%. When her oxygen level, and then when you made your amend to her, she took a deep sigh, and
right,
and it was like she was hanging on for that. So, but making amends is such an important step in AA, and that's our 9th step is making amends. And most of my friends talked about they felt they were really blessed to be able to make amends to their parents while they were still alive, and they were glad that they sobered up and cleaned up before they died, because then the amends would mean something. And otherwise, they would have to you just make a letter and give that letter to your parents. But I had made peace with both of my parents before they passed away.
Me
and
too,
my
Fred.
mother
Yeah.
She was 93, and my dad, it was, I took him to the hospital a couple of weeks before he died, and he was having a lot of pain, a lot of stomach problems, and so forth. And my father really, I'm the oldest of 5, and I always known been my father's favorite son, and so I was glad that I had that opportunity where he called me in the end, and that it was 2 weeks before he died, but I'm sure I was the last son that met with him and spoke to him. I really loved my dad a lot.
Yeah. That's amazing, yeah. My mother was the one I loved the most, but my father had the drinking problem. But I was there with both of them when they died. And I think it's because I had this fear of death. And whatever you're afraid of, God will bring you through, you know. If you tell God what you're afraid of, you're looking to get it to happen in your life. And that's what happened with me. I was with my father 3 times when he died because he had 3 cardiac arrests. He had 2 before the final one. And he didn't want to be resuscitated. And I'm in the room. Something made me go to the hospital that night my mother died. It was 10:30 at night. Something made me go to my father's hospital. My mother said, we got to go see Dad. And when we got there, my mother had Alzheimer's. And I said, I'll go. You stay here. I don't want you, because I didn't want her to get dementia, you know. I have to see my husband. So I brought her with me. And I'm so glad I did. This is the way the Spirit works. So we get to Yale, New Haven, where my father was. He was having a thyroid storm, and he had a built-in defibrillator. And he told him in the emergency room, I don't want you to do anything for me if I die. I've died twice. I don't want to be worked on again, you know. So I get into the room, and my mother gets into the room, and I went to touch my dad to say hello to him. And he was in so much pain from this thyroid storm that he said, don't touch me. And then he said, I'm sorry, but don't touch me. Too much pain. And then he looked at my mother, and we were only in the room for 2 minutes. And my mother, he said to my mother, after he said that to me, he said, are you okay, hon? And my mother said, I'm okay. And as soon as she finished saying, I'm okay, my dad had a cardiac arrest in front of the 2 of us. And they ran in to do it, and they ran into the Code 99 because they were monitoring him. And I didn't want to stop it because I knew I had resentment towards my father still, you know. So I went to my mother, and I said, she was in the hall. I took her out in the hall right away. She knew what happened. She was sitting in a chair, and I said, Mom, and they're already in the room working on my father. I said, Mom, they're working on Dad. What do you want me to do? And my mother, with all her Alzheimer's and all her confusion, she said, Joe, go in there and tell them to stop. And I followed my mother's orders, and they stopped and let him die.
Oh, my gosh.
I had been in the Divine Mercy for 3 years at that time. It works.
Well,
the Spirit moves you places where you belong when you need to be there.
The hardest amends I had was the one with my mother. And so when I started this Divine Mercy, my wife said she gave me this rosary that, and then she told me that it was the rosary that my mother had given me. I didn't even know that rosary was one that my mother had given me. And here I was praying the Divine Mercy for her, and didn't even know that at first that rosary had been the one she had given me. So
when was this, Fred? This just happened recently?
Yeah, my wife had saved that rosary for me. I hadn't been saying the rosary, and so when I told her I was looking for a rosary, she gave me this rosary that she had, and she told me that was the one that my mother had given me.
Wow, that's
and I
amazing.
didn't even know it. Oh.
Yeah,
I wish I had my mother's rosary, but they moved so many times that they got lost. But that's amazing, Fred. What a blessing.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, before we go, let's try something so you won't have to worry about it maybe if this works. Go into another room and then keep talking, though.
I'm already in the backyard. I'm all away from my electronics. I'm on my iPhone now, and the echo's still just as bad.
I know, but where's Fred?
Fred's in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Hello?
right, yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay.
It may be the distance between lines or something. So we only have a minute left, right? So why don't we get something to close with? Fred, do you have anything you'd like to say to close it up?
No, I just want to say that this is really a great opportunity and for sharing, and I want to get on this program so I can listen next week. So next week, 6 o'clock Albuquerque time, I just go to this website and I get to hear the radio show. Is that correct?
Yeah, and not only
Yeah.
that, but I'm gonna email you a link that you can give to your friends where they can listen to this show in about a week or so. Because Sebastian puts all the shows on my website, so I'll send you a link that people can click on and listen to this show.
Maybe
Sounds
Joe
good.
can call every week. Maybe he can call every week. He doesn't have to be on for the whole program if he doesn't have time. But
If you want
he
to call
could,
in and share a bit every week, be our guest. We'd
Yeah.
love to have you. We run out of things
Okay.
to talk about. There's only two of us. Three's much nicer,
Well, I enjoyed tonight very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, we're out of time. We've been talking to Joe and Fred, and we'll be back next week with Cry Oneness. Same time, same station. And if you give that link for Fred, then, like you say, some of his friends can listen too. So in the meantime, may God bless us, protect us from all evil, and bring us to everlasting life. Amen.
Amen. God bless you, Bob.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.